Councillor Casey and Walker. So can we get Elizabeth Osborne up to the table, please, as our policy analyst for social policy, and Paul Wilson as our team leader for policies and bylaws. And could I ask Councillor Cooper, please, to introduce the
Thank you for your
item.
indulgence, Mr Chair. Just that last time we went to our consultation, we were late, and I don't want the wrath of people from the Devonport Takapuna Local Board on us, as we did with the last group. So this is recommendations from the Regulatory Committee, the Waste Bylaws Statement of Proposal. So this has been worked through over probably 18 months or so to get to this point for your adoption to go out to public consultation. You'll just note that there were a couple of mistakes in the agenda report, but they've been fixed here. They just said trade waste bylaw when it actually was waste bylaw. We've just done that. We're doing that as well, so it's just got mixed up. I really probably don't need to say much more than the Regulatory Committee recommend that this be adopted for public consultation, and this is what we need to do every 5 years or so with all of our bylaws, to review them and put them out to public consultation for any amendments. I'll move it.
It's been moved and seconded by Councillor Newman. Paul or Elizabeth, anything you want to add to that? Okay, open it up for questions. Are there any questions? If not, I'll open it up for debate. Went through regulatory very smoothly. If there's no debate, I shall put the recommendations that we adopt the Waste Bylaw Statement of Proposal. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no, carried. And because we're probably in danger of a quorum, if we can thank you very much, Paul and Elizabeth. We worked you really hard today. That's waiting, that is, rather than contributing. If we come back to item 10, which is the Independent Maori Statutory Board, and if I can have Josie Muley to the, well, actually that's not Josie, no, it's Alistair Cameron. Alistair to, I shall move it formally. If I got a seconder, Councillor Filipaina, and if I can ask you, Alistair, and welcome to the table, Phil, just to speak briefly to it. It's pretty straightforward. It's an increase of 0.75% of 1% for funding.
Yeah, look, and I'm conscious you've had a long day, and I'm not sure if you want an introduction or just happy to take questions.
I'll accept that as the introduction. It's open for questions. Councillor Darby.
Thanks, Mayor. Alistair, does this include, under remuneration and expenses, does this include accommodation, our expenditure on accommodation, car parking and all that? That's all transparent in there as well, is it?
Attached to the report is attachment C is a draft shared services agreement. So the funding agreement is cash that we give to the IMSB each year to meet their costs. In addition to that, we have a shared services agreement with them, which is costs that we meet on their behalf, including rental and the like, and that's attached to the report at attachment C.
Okay.
So
further question?
I did raise this before, and I said at the next time that this is brought forward, in those numbers, in that funding agreement, it needs to, in my view, it needed to directly make clear that there were those additional costs, because you could read this at the moment like that is it. Now, where did that get to? Do you recall my query last time on this?
It's coming flooding back to me, Councillor. Yes, we do. And look, to make it transparent, that's why we have included the shared services agreement. So the two agreements in their totality that are on the agenda make up the total funding that we provide to the IMSB. In the shared services agreement, there's some Schedule 3 of that agreement sets out some direct costs, rental, OPEX, car parking, the like. They total about $397,000, which is cash that we pay on behalf of the IMSB. A lot of the other costs in that shared services agreement are estimates. They are services that council staff provide to the IMSB, and they are estimates because that's just staff time as opposed to out-of-pocket expenses. But for accounting purposes, a value needs to be put on those, and that agreement is an attempt to put a value on those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, is there any debate? If not, I shall put the resolutions. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Simpson, were you wanting to?
I don't know, is there any I mean, we haven't workshopped this, or if we have, I've missed it, sorry. Is there, I mean, is this what it is? I mean, where do we sit with the budget? I mean, really, I mean, this is a governing body, it's not finance. I mean, if I just look at, for example, the IMSB member who attends committees, that's one committee as opposed, compared to a councillor, it's one committee as opposed to all of the committees. I just want to know if there's any negotiation, or is this it, or what are we saying here?
Well, Phil might jump in here when I start getting things wrong, but the legislation basically provides that we have to meet the reasonable costs of the IMSB. There's been a lot of discussion, particularly immediately post-amalgamation, about what is reasonable costs. Each year we get strategic pay to independently assess the remuneration for the IMSB board members. So there is a degree of looking into that, but we don't have a strong negotiating position as such in that we have to meet the reasonable costs in terms of legislation.
Just one supplementary then. So what I'm hearing is, in your professional capacity, you're telling us these are the rates and the costs that meet the legislation, and you're asking us for that, to support that. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you. Councillor Filipaina.
Just a question, and it's, is there a political working party that has been established to go over the agreement?
At the beginning of the political term, a political working group was set up to review this.
And did they come back with a recommendation in regards to this particular one on the agenda?
The information has been provided to that political working group. I haven't been able to speak to, as far as I'm aware, Josie, who was dealing with this, hasn't been able to speak to all members of that political working group. I think it's probably better to say that no objections have been raised by that political working group.
And just last question, can I confirm in 27 that the staff recommend that the governing body approve the funding sought by the IMSB? Thank you.
Thank you. That seems to have exhausted questions. Are there any comments? If there are no comments, I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no, carried. I'm trying to get through these relatively quickly because we're in danger of losing a quorum when 3 of our members have to go on other council business. Ross Churnside, if I can welcome you and Nigel King to the table. These are the recommendations from Appointments of Performance Review, Value for Money. The recommendations are moved by Councillor Desley Simpson, seconded by myself. And if I can ask Ross, I think, is going to speak to it, to talk to it. A brief summary, you can expand on it if there are questions.
Yeah, certainly, Your Worship. This is the latest completed value for money review. I mean, overall, we found that all organisations across the group are actively building customer service cultures. Customer satisfaction is good, but performance is variable in certain areas. Service requests where we have multiple departments or multiple group organisations, handoffs, are where we run into some challenges. Where we're increasing our cost efficiency and effectiveness through digitisation. But we need to do more process simplification to support that move to digital. And we need to do a more joined up view of the customer across the group. The review came up with 2 recommendations. One was to improve the customer experience by simplifying the channel interface, i.e. make it easier for customers to interact with us in the way they want to. And actually then to focus on resolution of customers' inquiries at the first point of contact.
Thank you. Can I just, if I make this by way of a question, value for money, sometimes people think it's only about finding savings. It's not about finding savings, is it? It's about value for money, and that also means the quality of the service. And what you've identified is a real weakness where if somebody comes and makes a call to a call centre, but it can't be dealt with because it involves another part of the organisation, that can be a long and frustrating process. And what we're trying to make it a seamless process so we can give as much information at the time the first call is made. Is that a fair summary? Nigel? Yes. Okay. Great. Further questions? Councillor Cooper?
Oh, it was just, is AT included in this, or is that their own call centre? Is it pretty short?
We are
thing
AT's call centre.
I know,
except
but
for
that's
public-
what I,
Except for public transport, sorry, through the chair. Yeah,
Right.
we do act as Auckland Transport's call centre, except for public transport, so it is included in this review.
Thank you. But that might be an area where
I'm
if
going
it's
to ask, sorry,
Sorry.
because when you ring up, it says if you want AT, press here, press this number. So in my mind, when I ring, I'm ringing a different department. So is that not the case?
Nigel?
Actually, that's not, it is the case. You do get asked to, your preferences. That allows us to use what we call skills-based routing. So it goes to the person who's been trained to handle those types of inquiries.
It's good to have that clarification, actually. Probably people weren't aware of that. Okay, sorry, Councillor Casey, I have further question.
It's just a comment, Nigel. Just in my experience as a councillor, I have never had a customer ring me. I've had a resident or ratepayer ring me, but never a customer. And that word, there's something about it that distances you from people who are not spending money, just people who are contacting the council.
Through the chair, I know that it's a contentious name to give to our broader citizens, ratepayers, visitors of Auckland. I think it's something we kind of agree captures all of those. So rather than having to extend through the long list of types of people who interact with us, a customer has been a convenient way for us to clarify that. So.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Was a comment, Your Worship, so if you
Yep,
finish.
no, we're
Quick comment, there's nothing more important, I don't think, to the ratepayers of Auckland that when they have a problem, they want to be able to call council and get it answered in an efficient, effective way. So I congratulate us on taking on board this particular section of the value for money. I also support the fact that value for money is doing the right thing the best way, not necessarily the cheapest way. So I absolutely endorse it, as you know, and hope everyone supports it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the recommendations. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, no, carried. We come now, and why I'm quite keen to move on, before our councillors who have to leave, we have a recommendation for changes to standing orders. So